I'll get this all ready for you, Joe. So we are so pleased to have Joe. It's Verdis, right?
Yes.
And she's going to give the talk today, but she's talking about her healing through doing creativity, through spiritual practices, and I don't know what else. We're going to hear it. So come on up and let's give her a warm welcome.
Let me get this open.
Here you go. You're set. All right.
Hi. I am so excited to share this with you, and I really want to thank Reverend Marion for allowing me to have this opportunity today. Before I share my story with you, I would like to invite you to join me in a 2-minute practice that I have used countless times to help me with the difficulties I'm going to share about in a moment. Roxy, if you wouldn't mind flipping through a couple of slides
Okay.
up until the, this one.
Okay.
My favorite 2-minute tool for emotional relief. It's called 4-square breathing. And I know we just did a 2-minute meditation. This is kind of a particular, specific 2-minute meditation that is especially helpful when one is emotionally distressed. And because of the counting, it gives you a little bit of substance to focus your mind on. So the way this goes is that you count to 4 while inhaling and try to match your inhale to be completed at the end of 4 counts. Then you pause for 4 counts. Then you exhale for 4 counts. And then you pause at the bottom of your breath again for 4 counts and repeat. So I would like us to try this. And before we do, just take note of any feelings you might be having in your body or your emotions. Your mind's chattery, or just notice whatever you're feeling. And if you're feeling particularly amazingly relaxed and great, you could, if it feels right, think about something stressful before we start, just as an experiment to see what effect this has. So I'm going to count through a few of them and start the timer. Let's begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Continue at any pace that feels right to you. the time when I feel stressed or anxious or overwhelmed, overstimulated, many of the symptoms that have been a problem for me as a result of my brain injury. Thank you for participating. And I wanted to share that in 1 week from today, I'm going to be flying to Minnesota for a really exciting opportunity that I have been given to show my artwork twice in two places, 2 art shows, giving a workshop in alcohol inks painting for stroke survivors. There will be a concert, and I'm going to play a few of my songs. And I'm also giving a talk there as well about my story of healing through creativity after a traumatic brain injury. And I got to thinking that before I share that story up there, I would really like to share it with you, because you have been a part of that healing. You're a part of my story. And many of you know that I'm an artist. This story is the story of how I began painting, how I learned to paint, how I learned to hear my intuition. It's the story of how I was able to get music back into my life after an traumatic experience in college took that from me. It's the story of how I was able to open back up to my spirituality after religious trauma took that from me for a time. It's the story of how I met all of you, except Kyle. Kyle I met at a pool table in a bar on New Year's Eve.
Did he?
What?
Did he?
I can't remember. I usually do them. And the rest of you, if I have met you already, I met you through this difficulty in my life. This is also the story of how I healed my body from 22 years of chronic pain. And foremost is the story of the most difficult and intense suffering of my life. When I was 22, I was involved in a car accident. I hit my head somehow, never really figured out what happened there. And I sustained a traumatic brain injury. And in the initial aftermath, I had difficulties with certain mental functions. It was upsetting and scary, and I had to learn new pathways and new structures and systems to be able to live with those new limitations. And I did, and I went on to continue finishing my master's degree, et cetera, et cetera. And 11 years later, I began having really scary, intense emotional experiences. And I went to my psychiatrist because I had also previously been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So I had a psychiatrist, and he assumed that this was my bipolar disorder and started medicating me in new ways and trying different things. And I had a therapist, and I was, doing the whole mental health healthcare thing that I have been fortunate to have access to, and but it wasn't working. And the reason it wasn't working was because my symptoms were caused by my brain injury 11 years later, and we had no idea. So during that period of time when my healthcare practitioners didn't know how to help me, I lived for about a year to a year and a half with regular psychotic episodes. Sometimes I remembered them, and sometimes my system couldn't handle it and blacked it out. During these times, I experienced truly unbearable emotional agony. It felt as though my emotions were killing me, and I couldn't bear another moment of it. But nevertheless, it would continue on for maybe half an hour to 2 hours, and this was happening daily, sometimes several times a day. I became obviously non-functional and housebound. I was these things would come on. Oh, can you go to the next slide, Roxy? Thank you. This is, I guess, how I felt at the time. I drew that during that time. So these events were triggered by seemingly small irritants, like hunger, or the sound of a car passing, or the sound of a leaf blower. I had severe noise sensitivity, and the sound of someone next to me chewing their food could cause this. So I wasn't able to function in the world. If you go to the next slide also, that's a painting that I made at the time in an attempt to describe the feeling of the escalation into that space. And that escalation only took a minute or two. It was like from the trigger to the horror was just like that. So I had to learn to really quickly change my circumstances, stop the conversation, take care of myself immediately when I started to feel the feelings that initiated those experiences. Thanks for letting me share that with you.
Thank you.
One day, I was looking for solace, and because in between the episodes, I still felt a lot of agitation and discomfort. So I was looking for solace, and I wrote down an affirmation. If you could go to the next slide. On Earth, I am safe. And I just decided to write this out in block letters and color them. And I got really engrossed in it, and I had spent 2 hours coloring this. And when I was done, I realized with surprise that I felt calm. I felt good. I felt relaxed. And I felt none of the things that were driving me crazy every day. And then that was a really important insight. And the other insight that came along with this experience of coloring block letters was essentially a download from Spirit, from the universe, called art lessons. And at the time I thought this was about making visual art. Of course, later I came to understand that these lessons are also life lessons and spiritual lessons. And I'd like to show, thank you, Roxy. I'd like to show you the next thing I did with art. I got really excited about making visual art, obviously, because it made me feel better. And so I got a sketchbook. I started doing this art journal thing, and I decided to make collages and mixed media and whatever I could come up with to create a page for each lesson. So I'd like to share that with you. I never intended to show these to anybody, but here they are. The first lesson is you only need to see the next step. And this is, in essence, the primary method that I use in creating art and in creating in general process-oriented art making as opposed to result-oriented art making. If you don't need to know the result or pursue a specific outcome, you can be completely engrossed in the step you're on. That is a mindfulness practice, and that is why it's so effective as a therapy for mental and emotional distress. So when I make art, I am on the step I'm on until it's done, and then I look for the next step without knowing where I'm going. The next lesson is you will see it at the right time. You will see the next step at the moment when you need it. Remember, this is for art making and life. It's harder with life, but the art making practice helps me make those to live with this kind of trust in life too. This is about trust and not control. Letting go of the ego's desire to control the outcome, and trusting that the universe will give you the information you need exactly when you need it. And no more than you need in that moment. So there's more trust required. The third lesson is you will need to take some risks. You may have already intuited that, given the last one. And this is kind of my favorite one, because it's where I get to play a game I made with myself. And the game is, when I when I have the thought that presents itself that starts with the words, what if I tried, ... I have to follow it. I have to do that. That's the game. When I have an idea of something I could try and I don't know how it will work out, I have to follow it and follow that curiosity and see where it leads. And sometimes it's a risk because maybe I'm working on a painting and I like it so far, and the idea that came to mind could potentially destroy the whole thing. I have to do it anyway. And that is in fact how I learned everything I know about painting. That it's experiences of experimenting with new ideas and taking those risks to see what will happen. Okay, listen forward. Feeling like a kid will make it easier to take risks. Back to playing games. When making something, when doing something creative, it's wonderful to feel like you're playing with your best friend when you're a kid and you're maybe you're at the beach, you're building a sandcastle, or you're in the woods and you're building a fort, or you're just in the house dressing up and playing make-believe with your best friend. You're not thinking about the outcome. You're not thinking about making something that will impress somebody, or you're not worried about the result of this play. You're just playing. You're in the moment, having fun, and just exploring together with somebody you really like. So sometimes I think of creative time as time with sort of my inner creative being. Like it's this really special, imaginative, exploratory, adventurous, enthusiastic friend that I love and they love me, and we feel a lot of trust, and we can share emotional experiences, and we can make up inside jokes, and we just have this awesome time. And it sort of starts like, let's make something. Hey, you got any ideas? Oh, what about this? Okay, I'll try that. And then you try that, and then you kind of get to a place where you feel stuck. Hey, got any more ideas? What should we do next? Oh, well, what about this? Okay, I'll try that. And I don't have those conversations in words, but I could. One could. But anyway, that's kind of the gist of the experience that I feel that I have with creativity, and that's how I have been able to get over the creative block that I suffered with for years, which was all ego-oriented and centered around fear of not doing it good enough. And through that, I've been able to learn how to do it better by not worrying about it. Okay, lesson 5 is being creative is a form of connecting. And I wouldn't be surprised if you all know all about this already, but that was, at the time, a new insight for me, connecting with the divine and connecting with the divine within me. And also connecting with all of humanity, the creative nature that is our essence. Creativity connects us with everybody and everything. I had something else to say about that. What was it? Oh, prayer. I like to think of creative work as a two-way prayer. So I may receive information coming in, or inspiration and ideas, and I respond and express and put love into shaping it with beauty as best I can. And that is my prayer going out. And it's like a circulation of love that is really healing. Okay, lesson 6. Thank you, Roxy. Follows what I was just talking about. The process of making art makes me feel loved. I feel loved by the universe when I'm creating. I feel supported by the universe when I'm creating. And I also am able to honor and love myself by allowing myself to have this creative space to play without grading or judging the impulses that come from the creative being within me that is special and lovable. Finally, lesson 7 is simply Friday night. And what I mean by this, or what I guess the universe meant by this when I got the download, is think about an activity, participatory activity, something that you do that engages you so much you lose track of time, and maybe in an extreme you forget to eat for half a day because you're just so absorbed in it, or maybe for a couple hours. Something that really engrosses you and captures you. Think about that for just a second, and if you'd like, share with your neighbor what kind of thing that is for you.
Ballroom dancing
Oh, yeah, so yeah.
or photography.
I'm getting into my whole.
Can you get up?
Oh,
There is a honey, go get it.
Okay, has everyone had a chance to share?
Tissue box right before that point.
This idea of Friday night is that whatever that is that you are so drawn to that you can lose yourself in it. You could call it your Friday night thing. Like after a long work week, you could just watch TV, but if this comes along, you might just spend your whole Friday night doing that because it's so fun. That might be a place where you could experience your creative being, whether it's some kind of dancing or even sports, painting or writing poetry, or something that's not a traditional art form like cooking. Anything can be approached with creativity, and it's good to allow yourself to get lost in creating in an area in a way that you love and feel passionate about. And then, once you do that for a while, pick something else. I've spent most of my life, half of my life, playing music and writing music and making art in another art form, visual art, has been a really cool experience that also influenced my music in a wonderful way. So don't be afraid to try something new as well. Okay, thank you, Roxy. The next one. These are some slides with affirmations, and some of them I'd like us to just say and feel inside in our bodies. Some of them I'd like to elaborate on a little bit. So can we say this one together?
You are creative.
Thank you. Next one.
I am creative.
Next.
We are all born as creative beings. Here's your link.
Next.
Creativity is our birthright.
Creativity is accessible to me
anytime.
And if we could stop there. I've put several images on this slide. The first one I want to talk about is the scribbles. Scribbles are fabulous. way to express your emotions or just access your creativity without any pressure to make something that looks good. It's a scribble, it doesn't need to look like anything, and it doesn't need to look good. And it can really start that creative flow, and it could just be that the scribble is your creative act of the day. Or it could kind of warm you up for something else that you want to do creatively. But it's a wonderful way to create without judgment. And it can be a way to express emotions, which is healing and helpful. Here I have some little kid drawings. This is actually made by my 5-year-old niece, Eleanor. She's 6 now. She made that for me. And then this one I made with my non-dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so I made it with my left hand. And I was trying to kind of go into that child's space. And I was drawing a picture of my family, but I only got me and my brother in there. So sometimes it's fun to create in the way you did when you were a kid, when you were feeling free and that nobody was judging what you did. And also when you use your non-dominant hand to draw or write, it accesses both the non-dominant side of your brain, which is the creative part of your brain, and your subconscious, like dreams do. It can bring up things that your subconscious or intuition wants to tell you, and you can learn a lot of really fascinating things about yourself by using your non-dominant hand. Also, you don't expect yourself normally to draw very well with your non-dominant hand, so it's a great way to be creative and bypass the critic that wants to judge how well you've done. Up here, I have an image of some art supplies I ended up using without expecting to. I ended up sewing this year quite a bit, and I wasn't expecting to use fabric and thread as my medium. We're going to talk about them more a little bit later, but the point is you can use anything. Creativity is accessible to me anytime. You can make something out of a gum wrapper. You can just find anything, or any words, or any physical items, or any movement that you can think of, and you can create with it and make something original. Okay, I'm ready to move on. This is kind of in line with the last one. Let's say it together.
I enjoy exploring new materials and forms.
And I also want to talk about, I need to check my time too. I want to talk about mindfulness with this particular piece that I'm working on. This is not finished. It's a rug that I'm making with strips of fabric that I braid and then sew together. I meant to make like an oval kind of braided rug, like the kinds my grandmother before I was born. But following my intuition, what if I made a snake? What's that? And then I had to make a snake. That's right. What if I made?
That's the game.
Yeah, that's the game. What if I made another snake? Oh, and I have to thank Nancy, because Nancy and Mira are here, and Nancy gave me many of the older clothes that I cut up for that rug. Wow. So that's very special to me. Thank you, Nancy.
How big is
The
it?
beautiful colors.
How big is it?
So the kind of oval shape is probably about this big, I think. And
Yeah, he's
okay. Kyle knows. And then the game continued on. What if I made a pomegranate tree? And so I'm working on a pomegranate tree to hang over the snakes while they're swimming in the pool. So this is not what I expected to be making ever, ever, ever. I never thought this up, I didn't think this up. I didn't have this idea to make a snake rug, but I followed the game, and that's what happened. And now I want to kind of also describe the process of making this in terms of the mindfulness that we can practice while doing something creative. When I make this rug, I start by selecting fabrics, colors, then I cut them, then I braid them, then I sew them together. And during this entire process, I'm able to focus on the tactile feeling of the fabric, focus on the feeling of the thread passing through the fabric, which feels different on different fabrics. I'm able to think about, when I thread the needle, just concentrating all my attention in that one place. This takes my mind away from all of the worries and all of the emotions, and anything that is bothering me just fades away because I have to thread this needle now, and I'm enjoying the feeling of this fabric, and I'm getting into the rhythm of the stitches. It's the same, for example, maybe with journaling. If your creative activity today is to get out a journal and write a couple pages, you can feel the paper as your hand moves across the page. You can notice whether your handwriting is expressive and bold, or if you're working in a really neat way, and you can feel how that feels in your hand, and you can feel how you may or may not be expressing an emotion through the way that you write those letters. So the more you can get in your body also while creating, the more helpful it can be for getting relief from any distressing emotions you might experience in that moment. Can we go to the next slide now? Let's say this together. This is really important.
I release the need to judge what I create.
Let me say that one more time.
I release the need to judge what I create.
Great. Okay, next. Can I say I
Know that it is the process that matters, not the result.
In this painting, I had run out of my favorite colors of alcohol inks, and so I used a new color combination. And when I made this swoosh, I used the palm of my hand, and I just kind of combined that orange and blue by spreading the ink with my hand. And I didn't know how that would turn out, but it felt good, to do that, to make that swoosh with my hand. So I was able to paint with my attention on the process.